it ain't looking good. I'm diabetic. I have high blood pressure. I'm trending in the wrong direction. Like, we got to get honest and straight with ourselves here. But this is a powerful tool that will set the tone and make things easier in life for you, whether it's weight loss or whether it's something else. In the beginning, you guys had food chatter that was so high that you couldn't win that. Again, without David Goggins like mental toughness, you couldn't beat that. And so you use the medications. All right, let's get into the topics. I'm excited. Proper mindset. Let's start there. Okay, so mindset is everything. The proper mindset with regards to lasting weight loss, not just the FLOA protocol, but I want to get into the proper mindset that will set you up for success in my program, in any weight loss program, really in life. Like, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of tools that you can implement into your life that will help you in goal setting from a general sense. Okay. So goal setting is powerful, and there are powerful tools that successful people implement in order for them to better execute on their goals, regardless of what those goals are. So getting into it with what you guys are looking to do, this is a goal, right? This is a goal that you're looking to accomplish, and it has to do with weight loss. So we need to start with the base of setting and executing on goals is really establishing very clearly what that goal is. There's no filter here for you guys. There's no bullshit. I'm going to say that. So you need to stop bullshitting yourself, and you need to get real with what your goals are. And so I always recommend, if you haven't done this, take 5 minutes, or if it takes longer, undisturbed, turn off your phone and find some time where you can just take your attention off the rest of the world for 5-10 minutes and sit there and be with yourself, okay? And when you're doing this drill, this exercise, you want to be clear on what your goal is, because there's this thing that humans do, which is a automatic self-limiting barrier that we implement on ourselves because we're afraid. We're afraid that if I set the bar too high, I'm never gonna get there. For example, I gotta lose 200 pounds, okay? If I need to lose 200 pounds and I tell myself my goal is to lose 200 pounds, that's scary. And it's easy to say that I'm likely not going to get 200. And it's easy to start saying things like, if I just hit 50 pounds, if I just hit 100 pounds, I'm happy with that. And look, I understand why we do that, and I understand where that comes from. The thought process behind that is taking baby steps. Well, let me do 50 at a time, right? Let me get a win on 50 pounds as opposed to 200. But I got to be honest with you, I don't agree with that. And I think that's a very limiting goal. We can take advantage of baby steps, but we can't forget that the goal is 200. If that's what you need to be, if 200 pounds loss is what it takes for you to be healthy, then your freaking goal is 200 pounds. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not lower the bar. This is where we can remember I like, there's many quotes that I like, but one of my favorite quotes is, shoot for the stars. And if you shoot for the stars, you'll probably end up in the clouds. And that's great, because the clouds are still freaking way up there. And so we have to not be afraid to set the bar as high as we want to set it. And just let all of that crap in between, all of those self-limiting thoughts, get out the door. Now, once you do that, let's use that example of the 200 pound, need to lose 200 pound person, okay? So let's say they're a 400 pound male that wants to get 6 foot, 400 pound male. Ideal weight's probably around 200 pounds. So they set that goal. They stop BSing themselves. I want to lose 200 pounds. Fantastic. Totally okay with setting mini goals. There's nothing wrong with setting mini targets. But it's a very different flow when you say, my goal is 200 pounds loss, and right now I'm focusing on target number 1, which is 50 pounds. Very different flow than saying my goal is 50 pounds, when deep down you need to lose 200. It creates a completely different shift, and it, depending on how, I don't want to get too esoteric, but I do happen to be a person that believes in the fact that your thoughts and your energies, your thoughts create ripples in the physical universe, and it changes the energy around you. And you literally will change, you'll create a different path of actions that take place. And I believe they're going to be different in this scenario versus this scenario. So do this. It's like, we got to execute on this. Okay, cool. So we finish establishing the real goal, no BS. Now we got to get deep here. Now we got to get into the why. Why do you want to lose 200 pounds? And the why, ladies and gentlemen, is normally going to be associated with some emotion. There's going to be some emotion. I'm not saying there has to be, but I have found for 20 years of helping people goal set, especially with weight loss, there's going to be some emotion here. And so you could totally do this drill and this exercise the same time if you want to do it right after your goal, or maybe the goal was a big enough deal for you and you want to do the why a separate time. But same idea, find undisturbed time where you're not going to be disturbed, you're not going to be distracted, you put your phone away and you sit there with yourself and you ask yourself the question, why? Why do I want to lose 200 pounds? Do I have a wedding coming up? Do I have grandkids that I want to be around for? Am I concerned about my ability to say confidently that I'm going to be around for my grandkids to graduate high school because the doctor's telling me that it ain't looking good, I'm diabetic, I have high blood pressure, I'm trending in the wrong direction? Like, we got to get honest and straight with ourselves here. And once you can answer the question why, you need to ask yourself again. And you should keep asking why after why until you can honestly say there is no more. And that's when you find yourself getting to that deepest point and there's no more why to achieve. And like I said, you may get emotional with this, and it's okay. If you get emotional, experience that emotion for what it is in that moment. Don't analyze it, don't question it, don't change it, don't alter it. Just feel it and get through it. And you should end with some sort of brightness. You should end with some sort of uplifting emotion. And that goes for the goal itself too as well, that step number one. But it's usually a bigger deal with this step number two, the why. And so don't BS yourself through this drill and really do this till you hit that point where you feel uplifted. And when you do, you achieve the why. Okay? Bam. That's step number two in this process of goal setting. Okay. So now we have the goal. Now we have the why. So now let's bring it to existence. I love this. I love this. Let's bring it to existence. And we're going to do that with manifestation. And we're going to manifest it through affirmations. This isn't the only way to bring something to existence. And affirmations aren't the only way to manifest. It just happens to be one of my favorite ways. And so I'm going to focus on that. One of my favorite books, if you feel like you really want to dive into this, is a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a powerful book. And really, it's probably one of the, I would say, to my understanding, the original book behind manifestation. And many successful entrepreneurs, coaches have utilized the concepts in that book and kind of flipped it into their own version. But I always like to look at the original source as much as I possibly can. Phenomenal book. And really what you walk away with that, if you don't have time to read it, is a deeper understanding and connection with the power of being able to create something into existence. So again, I hope you have time to read that book, but I just gave you the walk away. So again, if you can read it, you should absolutely read that. Before we talk about how to do the affirmations, right? Let's talk a little bit about the science behind this. And that's what's really cool. I think it becomes more motivating when you understand the science behind why this is such a big deal. So you got this part in your brain called the reticular activating system. And the job of the reticular activating system is to act like a filter for you. Because if you think about it, in every given moment, there are millions and millions of bits of information that you are sensing through the various sense organs that you have, of which that data is then perceived and processed and responded to. You couldn't possibly consciously respond to all the various millions of sensory data that's being perceived, or you would quite literally explode, right? You would overload the system, right? This would be very synonymous to overloading a computer desktop by trying to run like a video card not to get too computery with you, but trying to put a too powerful of a computer, of a video card on a motherboard that can't handle that, right? Kind of use that analogy for a second. Due to the reticular activating system, you don't have to consciously worry about that. Your body is doing this, your brain specifically is doing this for you. So you ever notice where, for example, you purchase a car? Let's just say you purchase a blue Jeep, okay? In your day-to-day, you can look back and say, I never really noticed Jeeps when I drove around on the freeway. But all of a sudden you own a Jeep now, and now you're driving around and you're like, wait, did all of a sudden there just become more blue Jeeps on the freeway? No, like logically we know, but we notice it. Now that we're paying attention to the blue Jeeps, we're noticing more blue Jeeps, but you didn't have to consciously try, is the point here. You didn't have to put effort into paying attention to the blue Jeeps. Prior to buying the blue Jeep, if someone said, hey, I want you to pay attention to the road, and you're gonna notice blue Jeeps, you will. Because at that time, you hadn't bought the blue Jeep. So in order for you to notice blue Jeeps, you have to exercise your attention to do that. But the point that I'm trying to say, now that you bought the blue Jeep, that blue Jeep has become something very important to you. And now automatically it has earned its way into that sort of priority list to where now without you having to exercise that conscious effort, because remember, you've heard me talk about the finite amount of conscious effort that we have at any given moment. You don't have to do that and you just notice a blue Jeep, okay? So what I'm saying here and what the science shows us is that we can, and what I really mean by creating something into existence is creating a similar effect to what it would be like to buy a blue Jeep. Meaning whatever it is that you want to become better at, whatever plan you want to execute on, one very powerful strategy is to create that same effect that buying a blue Jeep does. We want to create that same effect where it just becomes automatic, where we don't have to put the conscious effort. Then imagine how powerful and how much more successful you will be when you both have this desire for weight loss happening automatically and you're exercising additional effort towards it because of how important this goal is, right? And that's going to come from the why in the goal setting. And so now we want to bring it into existence. And what I'm saying to you is affirmations, again, they're not the only one, but this is what we're going to train on today, can very well do that for you, okay? So we got the goal, we got the why, and now we understand the effect of affirmations can do for us. So how do we do it? It's simple enough. You just look at your goal and your why and you read it twice a day. You read it in the morning when you wake up, preferably, or maybe you put it in your bathroom, right? And then you read it before bed. Same thing. It's you choose the area that makes the most amount of sense for you. I got a whiteboard near my bed. So a whiteboard near your bed or a board in your bathroom or a freaking set of sticky notes. I don't care where it is. Just put it somewhere where you are very unlikely to forget to read it. And you read that damn goal, damn goals. And you read the why. And that's it. You don't have to sit there and have a whole Q&A with yourself and get emotional again. It might happen occasionally, and occasionally I think it's a good idea to take 5 minutes with it if you want to reflect, but you don't got time for that every day. All I'm asking you to do is commit to taking freaking 30 seconds twice a day and read it in the morning and read it in the evening. And I can promise you, if you do this, usually around 3 weeks is the sweet spot, but it can take longer if you didn't really do it. And maybe individually you have bigger barriers to this, but somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks of reading your affirmations in the morning and in the evening, you will begin to have some of that blue Jeep effect, right? If you remember what I mean by that, where it starts to happen automatically. And that, again, we're talking about weight loss. Obviously, you guys are here for me to help you with lasting weight loss, but go ahead if you have other things in your life that technically right now, for whatever reason, are more important, you can use this for that too as well. You can also do 2 goals at the same time. Obviously, the more goals at one time that you're trying to slip into your reticular activating system, the more difficult it's going to be. So I don't know what's the most important thing in your life, but I'm going to assume it's lasting weight loss because you're here. And so let's execute on your lasting weight loss goal, and let's get this goal which is hopefully following my advice and implementing the program. Let's get it into your reticular activating system and let's make it happen automatically by executing on your affirmations. And here's the good news. You don't need to do affirmations for life, although you certainly can. There is a point where something in your life becomes so deep that it's there. And so I don't believe that you have to necessarily do affirmations on a particular topic, right? For example, if you guys can't tell, my passion for what I don't have to read affirmations on that. It's just where I've gotten on this topic. But that's a phenomena that I think is rare. If you can get to that point, freaking great. And this is the example of somebody who loses weight and they have this 180 in life and they become extremely motivated, and that's great. If you hit that point, great. But I think most of you are gonna have to keep a little bit of maintenance, right? So you go twice a day for a couple months and you feel that fire and you feel it's there, yeah, you can back off to once a day. Might even be able to back off to a couple times a week, but don't stop. Don't stop, because if you stop, it might slip out, right? And if it does, life gets crazy, you can always slip it back in. Again, you've heard me say, if you fall off the bandwagon or you fall off the horse, don't be afraid to get your butt back onto that horse and get right back into the motion. But this is a powerful tool that will set the tone and make things easier in life for you, whether it's weight loss or whether it's something else. So let's get into the second part of this, because there is more to gain from this, right? So now we've just covered mindset in a general sense. So now let's connect it to what you guys are doing, right? What the heck are you guys doing? The objective here should be very clear. And if not, let me make it clear for you. We are implementing the FLOA protocol so that we can address the underlying issues that drive obesity, specifically insulin resistance, inflammation, metabolic flexibility. There's more, but the reason why we are honing in on trying to implement lifestyle strategies is because at the end of your weight loss, right? Because I forgot to say at the beginning, we needed the help of the medications, and I'm all for that. But the goal that a lot of you guys have, hopefully all of you, is we want to get off those meds at some point. We want to maintain weight loss for the rest of our lives. But I got to remind you of how difficult that is. The reality of lasting weight loss is extremely difficult. So now we're not even talking about medications. We're just talking about weight loss as a whole. The literature is very clear that 80% of people will fail to maintain their weight loss within a couple years. I want that to sink in. And a lot of you probably already knew that, but maybe you didn't know how bad it was. But this is fact. Like, this is in the literature. 80% of people will regain their weight loss within a couple years. All methods of weight loss. It's pretty shitty, huh? Isn't that crazy? If you know somebody who has lost weight and maintained it past 3 to 4 years, that's a unicorn. You should become good friends with that person, because if you're not already, because what that person did was figure out how to do something that the majority of people could not. And I want to talk about that because it's important of understanding that. They've actually done literature looking at the individuals, the unicorns, and what the heck it is that what's different about them? Like, how did they crack the code, right? Because remember, the hormonal basis of obesity and focusing on your hormones is still a new concept that is wildly disregarded. In fact, it goes against the literature. The literature still says hormones don't matter, it's all about calories. Yet, the calorie approach is what we've put our focus on, and it's never worked. Yet, that rhetoric is still strong, and it's very strong for a reason. The data is very clear, and I have deeper videos getting into that, so I won't spend too much time going on to that topic, but the data is very clear of why we keep thinking calories is the focus, yet it just seems to never work long term with us. When we look at the big picture of this program and what we're doing, we're focusing on trying to optimize and improve the hormones which are going to govern the calories aspect, right? Because I want for you guys long term to make it easier. And then we do that, and I've done that successfully, despite the literature saying otherwise, by teaching you guys strategies that focus on improving those hormones. And so the more and more we can improve your hormones via the FLOA protocol, the easier and easier it gets for your body to regulate itself. But bringing back the mindset, I'm never going to be able to create a situation for you guys where, not that you guys are asking me for this, but I really want to get this concept in. I will never be able to create a scenario for you guys where you are not going to have to exercise your own mindset. And this is a wild concept because we think about these medications, right? What does tirzepatide do? It suppresses appetite and also improves insulin sensitivity. But in essence, it's removing the food chatter so that we can implement this protocol. But when you're getting dosed and working with a doctor and we're trying to land on a dose, you don't land on a dose based off of how hungry you are. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. You land on it. If you're not working with us, you get thrown on whatever dose and there's zero monitoring if you're not with us, which is a whole other thing. But even with us, it's still not as deep as I would love for it to be in terms of trying to find a perfect dose, because it's really hard to do that. With us, you guys have learned that our approach is the lowest dose that you can implement the protocol. We've always said that. And I want you guys to understand why I've said that. Because for everybody else out there on this medication, they end up on whatever dose they end up on. And if you think about food chatter, imagine food chatter on a scale of 1 through 10. So imagine food chatter, 10 out of 10 means undescribable hunger, cravings, zero self-control. You literally have this barrier that you can't get past. And this is your 600-pound life, right? This is your, what do they call that movie? Your 600-pound whatever, where they can't stop eating 24/7, okay? That's 10 out of 10 food chatter. And then imagine 5 out of 10 is still a really big deal, half as strong as that. And then imagine 0 being 0 food chatter. Imagine having 0 hunger. How easy would it be to eat healthy food if you had 0 cravings? In fact, it actually might work against you because you would forget to eat, right? That's a problem too. Not as big of a problem as 10. I would take 0 over 10. I'd rather have the problem of having to remember to eat than being able to stop eating. But this can also be a big problem too. And this is the point that I'm trying to make right now, because we're bringing it back with mindset. Like, the mindset for you guys needs to be this. You have to remember that you're going to get to a point where you're going to be off these medications and you're going to be hungry again. You're going to get to the point where you are going to have to exercise control over your body, right? You have to be okay with being hungry for the rest of your life. You have to be okay with having some amount of food chatter for the rest of your life. But let me tell you, when it comes to fasting, the exception being diabetics, the exception being extreme medical conditions, I could take 100 people, throw them on an island, and you're not going to die. Like, again, the exception being the majority of these extreme medical conditions. But I could take 100 people, no food for 3 weeks. Even athletes that have low levels of body fat, I can throw them on an island for 3 weeks. Water and electrolytes, that's all you had, you're not dying. No one's dying. Now, hunger, food chatter might very well create this death-like feeling, right? But this is why we're talking about mindset. Because I teach you guys what concerning symptoms look like. When you should say, okay, I need to stop fasting, right? We've talked about that. Medical grade hypoglycemia, extreme exhaustion, cold sweats, actually measuring your blood sugar and seeing that it's low, shakiness, extreme exhaustion, any of those things you stop, right? But if we're not dealing with those symptoms, everything else, it might feel like you're gonna die. It might feel very challenging, but you know what actual concerning symptoms look like, and the rest of it, it doesn't matter what it feels like. You know that's a barrier that you are battling with, okay? Now, if it felt like death, we wouldn't be successful. So I'm not saying that you need to handle the death feeling. That's not what I'm saying. And I think some of you get that. But what I am saying is that I was using an extreme example to say that in the beginning, you guys had food chatter that was so high that you couldn't win that. Again, without David Goggins like mental toughness, you couldn't beat that. And so you use the medications. But throughout this program, I want to really hone in the mindset that eventually, as you get better and better, as we improve your physiology, as you become more insulin sensitive, as you become more metabolically flexible, as you reduce your inflammation levels, as you implement an exercise regimen, you're lifting weights, you're taking your supplements, you care about your sleep, like those things don't require a ton of effort once you get them in. Because I don't make you guys follow some crazy diet. I don't make you guys do extreme levels of exercise, right? Like I make it sustainable. But once you start implementing those things, you start treating those physiological issues, those things are going to start to reduce the food chatter. And again, I'm never going to get you guys a 0 out of 10 food chatter, but I'm going to get you somewhere between 1 and 5. That's my goal. And probably when you're off the meds, you're going to, let me rephrase that. No one's going to be at 1. When you're off the meds for the first time, you're going to be somewhere between 3 and 8. I'm trying to give as much extremeness as I can. Probably somewhere around 5, but everyone's different, especially if you're stopping meds at different times. But I'm going to get you from wherever you were at, which was very high, down to this 3 to 8 range. Now, each of you have your own mental toughness, and each of you are going to land at some point that you either can handle or you can't. If you can handle the food chatter now, off the medication for the first time, even if you're not at your weight loss goal, guess what? That right there, that was the whole point of this program. Because now you're in control. You can control the food chatter, and you just keep implementing the FLOA protocol, right? Some of you, you're going to stop, test it out, and you still don't have control. We got it from 8 to a 6. And for you, 6 was still too much. That's totally fine. Guess what? You play with it for a little bit and you get back onto it, right? And that opportunity to experience a 6, because you know when you're on the med, you're feeling like a 3 or a 2. And this is where somebody mentioned earlier today, hunger. I don't feel hunger. And I want that person to remember what I'm saying now, because that's a problem. The longer that you experience 0 or 1, the weaker you become mentally. And that's just a reality. If you don't want to lose your ability to exercise control over hunger, then don't create a situation where you feel no hunger. If you do, and that's where you're at, we can fix it later. But the most ideal scenario is lowering food chatter but not eliminating it. Because if we eliminate it, then we grow weaker, and now we have to train ourselves out of that. But if we just reduce it to a tolerable amount, then that mental toughness doesn't weaken, because your mind can weaken just like your muscular system will weaken. What happens when you stop lifting weights? You atrophy your muscle. What happens if you stopped fasting? You would lose the benefit of the insulin sensitivity, and you would become less metabolically fit. Same thing if you stop doing ketogenic diet, you lose some of the same benefits. So there's a certain requirement of effort in whatever category you've begun to train on in order to maintain the adaptive positive response that you've gained from the whatever stressor we're talking about. And right now we're talking about improving food chatter. Remember that one of your tools for success in the future, probably maybe one of the most powerful, is going to be your ability to exercise your mindset and execute properly. And I'm going to do everything I can to get you to that point. Whether you follow it perfectly, like I said, which is throughout the entire protocol, you never create that scenario where it's zero chatter. You may or may not be lucky enough to create that. I'm sorry. Sometimes you just, where you're at, the medication gets you to 0. It is what it is. But I just wanted to give you that example and understanding that if you can leave yourself in a slightly hungry state, slightly food chatter-ish amount, you're not going to lose that mental toughness that you're going to need in the future to live the FLOA lifestyle. And what is the FLOA lifestyle? The FLOA lifestyle is awesome. The FLOA lifestyle is serenity. The FLOA lifestyle to me is that goal that I have for everybody. which is what I strive for, which is maintaining health with minimal effort. Minimal doesn't mean like I'm being lazy, but minimal means I would rather spend the rest of my effort enjoying my free time with my kids, enjoying my time with my spouse, being able to live a life, but not negating my health. It means stepping up during the months when I'm stressed out and there's a crazy situation. Guess what? Then I got to exercise more control. But overall, month to month, it's significantly less effort to maintain your weight in the FLOA lifestyle than it's going to be for anybody else in the rest of the world. And I believe that to my core. If you guys found this video informative and you learned, then you're gonna wanna check out this following video that I link. It's all about lasting weight loss. We'll see you there.
Toxins. And when we think toxins, we're not just medications or environmental toxins. We're also thinking about what is the metabolic waste left over in our body. So you have these triggers, and what we've found, and